Hey again, back at it. Video number 2 in the FFA record keeping series, if we want to call it that. Um, got a couple of things I just want to point out to remind you in our record book. Um, if we look back at it, this is the opening page when you log into the AET, the Ag Experience Tracker. You can find it at www.theaet.com. And as you get logged in, just like we did in the last video for setup and planning and getting your project ready to go, this is the page you'll drop into. And you can see a few options to where you can go and what you can do with this record book. Profile is where we spent some time last time in the last video, along with the Project Experience Manager. So if we just go back into the manager, the Project Experience Manager, you'll see we've still got that same County Fair steer project that we entered last time. However, our planning is done. We've got our green check marks. We're all set. I just want to point out that the line is still this reddish, pinkish color because we haven't done anything with the project yet other than made a plan. There are still some red X's over here in the reviewing and reporting category. So this stuff all is going to come later down the road. So these are okay to stay with the X. But the pink line, the red line, is what we need to get rid of next by entering some information about what we're doing with this project. So let's jump into the finances portion of the series with this video. If we go to our dashboard, again, this is right where you get logged in, where it'll drop you. Finances is what we're going to look at. So we're going to click on this tile or the tab up at the top. Once we open that up, the finances page brings up a couple of tiles to look at. You can see our Experience Manager again. You've got access to it there, so you can go back in and look at your project. We can review and edit entries that we've made on finances, and we can also enter things we have when we start with Ag Ed or with FFA. So those of you that are first time coming into the project, you're realistically going to start here to show what you have for your time in your FFA projects. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today, but the things you want to see here are your current projects. Maybe your first day in agricultural education was this June. We got started with that summer agriculture program, and so this is where we start. It's on June 1st. Some of you may have started June 1st 3 years ago, or whatever it might be, but that date will show when you started with Ag Ed classes that you've recorded in the record book. Your current projects, you can show what you own that is going to be kind of rotating through current type projects. When in accounting, when you've got something that is current, it usually only lasts for about a year. So your County Fair steer, County Fair goat, those kind of things, you only own that animal for about a year, and then it gets sold. Other things, maybe your soaps and shampoos and show supplies, things that you're going to use up quickly this year. Those are the kind of things that you could record as current inventory that you already have. And so basically what you're doing here is just making sure that you know what you already have on hand when you get started with the project. And you can drop in as many things as you own. And I want to be clear here, these are things that you own. If you're using somebody else's things, like if the soaps and shampoos were bought by your family, and then all of your siblings use those things, and you never see that cost show up in your own personal finances, you don't own those things, so don't enter them here. For right now, if you have purchased some things to get started in your project, and on June 1st you had them in your possession, that's where you're going to put this. Okay. The big one is going to be something like your animal that you're showing at the county fair. If you bought that animal back in April, before June 1st, you have something of value in your possession that you own in your inventory. Okay, inventory, if you want to call it that. That's what it really is. and you can show that you own it and have it, and drop it into this line here. Non-current is going to be things that last longer than a year. Maybe you have a trimming stand that you bought. Maybe it's a truck and a trailer. Okay, these are items that last longer than 1 year, and you can show their useful lifetime and what they cost to begin with, as well as what they're worth when you would eventually be done with that item. Maybe the salvage value would be $100 when you originally bought something at, your trimming stand was $300 when you first bought it. But these are, like I said, these are items that you already have before June 1st of this year, your first time in Ag Ed. These are things that you have in your possession, and you own them. Again, if the trimming stand was your family's and all of the siblings use it and it never was your purchase, then you would not put that here. If you've started your stuff long ago and this year is not your first year using this record book, you don't need to use either of these items here. You're not going to put these in because you're continuing with things that you've already entered in long ago. So this is just for those starting off right off the bat. There's also an option to put in liabilities and loans. So if you had to take out a loan to, buy your steer, very uncommon. But if that's something that you're doing, you could enter that in here. And then one nice thing to have is to show the amount of cash or money that you have on hand at your disposal as you get started with this project. And you may not record all of your savings that you've got tucked away in the bank, but maybe you have a certain amount set aside that is specifically for projects, whether it's an FFA project or just the county fair project or whatever. You've got cash or a savings account that's set up to be used specifically for that item. Probably not a college savings account, probably not your everyday spending money, but money that is set aside specifically for this type of project. You can enter that into this box here and save that. So once you've got your beginning value set up, again, that is beginning in agricultural education and FFA, not beginning for this year. Because if you started 3 years ago, you should have done this 3 years ago, and we don't do it again. It's just right off the bat when you get started. Okay. So if we go back to our finances page, then we can look at where we need to go next. The thing we did when we set up our project was used a market manager. So in our case, with a market steer, we chose the market manager for market animals. So I'm going to click on this. This is where I want to get started, and it may or may not be your option depending on a couple of things, but this is where we'll start just for what we're doing. Okay. First thing is I want to make sure that I know which project I'm looking at. I need to select my county fair steer because that's the one I want to talk about today. I also had another project in my list of items. County fair goat was one of those, but we're not going to put anything in that one today. So county fair steer. Your project realistically begins with purchasing an animal. So that's going to be the start. Okay, that's where I'm going to show you to start. Now, some of you spend your own personal money and hand over a cash or check to buy your lamb or your steer right off the bat. Others of you may do it a little bit differently. Maybe your parents purchase it originally and then you pay them back after you receive your fair check. Maybe some of you receive your steer from your grandpa and you work for him on his farm to pay off that steer. Okay, there's several options to make this work. This first thing I'm going to show you, this buy new animal, is going to be the situation where you are spending money to pay for that animal. You are actually handing over cash or a check to purchase that animal. And so when you click on that buy new animal option, you can choose the date that it happened, the person that you paid, who you bought that animal from. So let's just say we bought it from James Cattleman. A steer that you're taking to the county fair is going to be inventory for resale, because you are purchasing that animal with a specific purpose to raise it and then sell it again, to resell it. So we'll call it inventory for resale. If you purchased more than one steer, you can put into up to 5 animals with this tool right here. So you can enter them in individually. But our first one, inventory for resale. Say I spent $1,500 on this steer, and it was one head, and we bought it. Oh, I don't need the dollar sign in there. We bought it for, or it weighed about 800 pounds when we bought it. Enter more animals here if you need to, that you purchased from James Cattleman, and then you can hit save and return. And then it shows up in this line as an animal that we've purchased. Okay, and that's if you bought it with cash or a check or whatever it ended up being. So in the situation where we are receiving an animal from Grandpa and trading work for value of that animal, we're going to put that in as a new non-cash entry. So I click on that. There's a few options. If I am paying off my project with an experience that I am already doing, okay, I've got 2 experiences, and one of them is paying off the project and bringing it into the other project. And there's a little complication there, but that would be a SAE labor exchange. In our case, it's non-SAE because we're doing it outside of a project that we're already doing. If I was raising cattle and I had a calf that I was pulling from my breeding herd into my market herd, that would be a transfer from another project. Or you could just flat out receive this animal as a gift, and that's an option. It's a totally legitimate option. So we're going to choose in our situation where Grandpa gives us the steer, and we work on the farm to make up that cost. Then we choose that non-SAE, non-cash, non-SAE labor exchange. So we enter the date that we bought it, the value. Let's say it was $1,200 value, and steer again is inventory for resale. So we click on that, hit save, and then it drops that in there. So now I can still see the steer that I bought for $1,500 outright, as well as the steer that I'm working for Grandpa to pay off that he gave me at a value of $1,200. So they're both there. We've got animals in the system, and now we can start keeping track of what we're doing with this project. The big one is, again, I want you to remember the easiest way to punch these numbers in. If we click on our Finances tab up here, there's a lot of options to put in all kinds of things, right? Cash entries, non-cash entries, and we've talked about some of those. The best way to keep track of this project is to go right into that Market Manager, because it's going to deal specifically with items that will be tailored to a market steer or market lamb or market hog project or whatever it is. So choose that Market Manager and then find that project that we're working on, County Fair Steer, and we've got both of them in there. As soon as I'm ready to start typing in some expenses, this is where we do it. Okay, a new cash expense. So I've got to buy feed. I've got to buy products, show products, and whatever other supplies we need to run through the entire year up until the county fair happens. So a new cash expense is going to be pretty straightforward. It looks very familiar, right? We've got 5 options to drop things in here. We've got a date that something was purchased, as well as a vendor, whoever you paid for this, whoever you purchased these items from. Let's say we bought a bunch of items from IFA, like some show feed and maybe a show stick or something like that. I'm going to call this experience our County Fair Steer, because we're still working on that one. the type of thing that I bought. Let's say I bought some feed and I spent $500 up front for a bunch of feed. Forget we can't have symbols in there. It's already got the symbol out there. And you could enter in the amount of feed that you got on a memo or whatever it might be, or you can leave this blank. You just know that you paid $500 for some feed. At the same time, at IFA, I also bought for that same steer project some supplies like soaps and adhesives and whatever else we're doing to make that steer look real good, conditioners, whatever. And I spent another $100 on some of those products. So I can put in 2 different categories from the same vendor and show how much I spent on both of those things and hit save and return. Now it's recorded those, and we can go back and look at some of these. We can see that we bought feed here, and obviously it's just the feed entry. We're going to look at our other entries in another place. We'll come back and look at that later, but we can go find those entries, and we can edit them if we need to, or we can fix whatever we need to. We can always add new expenses with the buttons when you find those. But we want to be tracking the amount of money you're spending all the way through this project. So each time you paid somebody or you make money somewhere, you can put those in there. And most of us are probably just going to be making money once we get to the sale and through boosts at the county fair. Others, there might be a handful of us that are potentially entered in jackpots or other things that you would receive some payouts, and you'd want to show that you're receiving some income through those kind of things. So let's talk about income for a second. If I go back to my finances page, click on the tab up here, we can see that there are, again, like I said, lots of options. When I'm in the Market Manager, there's only one place to enter income, and it's specifically the sale of your animal. So on that one and get to the steer, and our sell info can go in there. So selling or transferring your animal. So let's say we decided to take the animal that we bought outright to the county fair, and we've got some options. Sometimes animals die. Sometimes we move them over to other projects. Sometimes we keep them and use them at home. In this case, if it's a market steer, your alternate, maybe that's what this one is, your alternate, your family just kept it, got a slaughter date and cut and wrapped and brought it home and put it in the freezer, used at home. Or some animals get transferred over as breeding animals. Obviously, in our case with a steer, that won't be what we're doing, but we're going to show that we sold this animal at the county fair. We want to enter the date of the sale. We can show who purchased our animal. Boy, you know who purchases a lot of animals at the county fair is Nucor. Let's drop them in there. This is a cash or market sale. And the dollar amount, maybe we met our goal and we got that, from what our budget was, and we got $3,500. We know how much it weighed at the county fair. Let's say it was 1,356 pounds when we weighed in. And then we can hit save, and that animal now shows that it's been sold. Okay, sold right here to this individual for this much money. Weighed this much. So we can see all that information in the manager. Now that entry is there. We've sold it, but there's going to be some other financial entries, some other income that you need to show. So we're going to go back into our finances tab. Since we can only sell through the Market Manager, our other entries for income happen in the cash entries link right here. It gives us a few options: income, expense, again expense. So income is what we're looking at. I'm going to click on that. Again, very familiar, right? We can put in 5 different entries here with the same person that is paying us if we need to. Most of the time, that won't be what you're doing on income. We've already put in our sale. Let's say you had a jackpot show that you went to. We recently had the Golden Spike Clash here in Tremont. It wasn't a steer jackpot, but just for demonstration's sake. Let's say that county fair steer of ours we took to that jackpot here in Tremont, and we had other income or awards or scholarships. Stock show sale, that's not going to be what we're doing, but an award at a jackpot is what I would call one of their payouts. And we received, maybe it was $50 for whatever you could show that's, let's see, jackpot payout, okay? And then hit save and return. So that enters it into all of our entries. We show that we've got $50 from that, along with all the other money that we've been changing hands over the last few months of this project. And now we need to go in and enter our boosts. So we get to the end of it. We've sold our animal. We're also getting boosts coming through the county fair. That's also going to go in as a cash entry income. And in this case, your check comes from the Box Elder Junior Livestock. So I would enter the BEJL as the vendor, the person who paid you. And then each boost that you get, I would separate those out as other income. Maybe you got $25 from Grandma. And you also got $50 from Grandpa, because, Grandpa's got to show up Grandma. And maybe some business down the road sent $10 to you. Okay, and we can continue to move these through. You can enter 5 each time, hit save and enter another, and can just continue adding all of your boosts in here. Maybe you've got 10 or 15 boosts that you need to enter, and you can just drop 5 in at a time on each one of these entries. And when you get to the point where you're all finished up, you can hit save and return, and you'll see all of those things added up. You can see the money that you spent on this project, the money that you earned on this project, and then you'll be in pretty good shape. That's our finances. This finances video is a little bit crazy, kind of all over the place. If you get confused and you have a hard time knowing where to go and what to do, give us a call. Your ag teacher wants to help you out and make sure that you know where you stand with your project and your finances. That's a major component of the FFA, and knowing what's going on as far as record keeping goes. So get with us and we can give you a hand. Check back on video number 3, and we'll be doing some journal entering. So we'll see you on the next one.